Hi there, this is Alan English, actor, writer and autism trainer with another autism tutorial. This tutorial is on the subject of neurodiversity. Now, I want to discuss the idea of neurodiversity as it appears to autistic people across the spectrum, and I want to start this with a brief history of neurodiversity. Now, the move towards neurodiversity came into being in 1993 when Jim Sinclair, an autistic man, wrote an essay titled "Don't Mourn for Us." This essay was directed at the parents of autistic children and was a plea to them to love their autistic children for who they were, rather than what their parents wished them to be. This was the first real move towards autistic self-advocacy, with autistic people speaking for themselves, and was the foundation of what became the neurodiverse movement. The term itself was coined in the late 1990s by an Australian anthropology student called Judy Singer. She came up with the term after noticing patterns and symptoms of autistic behaviour in her mother and eventually her daughter. She came to believe that there was something in the blood or in the genes getting passed down through the generations to create these behaviour patterns. She joined an online mailing list called Independent Living on the Autism Spectrum. The list was made up of people right across the spectrum with a different range of conditions, and its ethos was neurological pluralism. This phrase was created by a list member, a writer called Harvey Bloom. It was in exchanges with Bloom, both on the phone and online, that inspired Judy Singer to come up with the term neurodiversity. The rise of what became known as the neurodiversity movement coincided with the rise of the internet in the early part of the 21st century. Websites like Aspergia and then Wrong Planet allowed autistic people to communicate and connect with each other in a way that was not possible before. The mission of the neurodiversity movement was to counteract the messages in the media and in society about autism being a disease or a disorder that forever damaged anyone unlucky enough to have it. The movement's message was that being autistic was a positive state of being and that neurological difference of this kind should be celebrated. Autistics were beginning to speak up for themselves in public and even influencing political policy. One of the notable leaders of this movement was Ari Neiman, who co-founder of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, who later served as an advisor to US President Barack Obama. Autistic advocates are now pushing for a new paradigm, remodeling society to support autism as a social condition rather than a medical disorder. They believe that the diversity of human brains is natural and on the same level of diversity as race, sexuality, and gender. They also support the idea that there is no such thing as a normal human brain. Not all autistics agree with the concept of neurodiversity or the social paradigm for which it is a basis. Some autistics see the idea of neurodiversity and celebrating neurological difference as a denial of the deficits and the challenges that being autistic brings for many people, especially those who have more severe challenges. Some observers have noted that the more the movement has become politicized, the more dominated it has become by higher functioning autistics who do not tolerate dissent to their ideas. This has meant that the more severely autistic people, with the more severe challenges, and those who support them have become underrepresented in this movement. The other challenge that has been put forward is the question of where neurodiversity really ends. Should psychopaths and paedophiles, for instance, be classed as neurodiverse? For me personally, neurodiversity can and should be a term and a movement that represents all autistic people. At its best, the movement represents a direct challenge to the stigma, abuse and misunderstanding that still exist for autistic people. Nevertheless, the shortcomings of the movement are significant and need to be acknowledged and addressed. If this happens, the neurodiversity movement can become a real force for positive change in the lives of autistic people.